Hello and good morning. This is Chris Pfluger. I'm the Chief Development Officer here at We Insure. And today we have a very special We Wonder. Today we're talking about home staging. And a lot of people are going to ask the question, home staging, what does that have to do with insurance? Well, we're going to get to that. So first off, I know that home staging is a very interesting business. It can be very fragmented. And if you don't know what you're doing in your market, you don't know much about it, right? So who do you call? What do you do? How does it work? We're going to find out today. But as it relates to us and anyone who's in real estate, when I say us in real estate, everybody knows around the real estate transaction, there's a lot of things that occur. And home staging is one of those items that a lot of agents rely on, very much so, and the clients rely on to get the top dollar for their home during that listing process. And it's not always your $10 million homes that do it. It's homes at all different price points. It's different clients. Sometimes it's agents that engage, and sometimes it's individuals. And those individuals may be the first time ever to home stage, and sometimes they may be investors that need multiple home stage every month. So a lot of variety there. But on the insurance side, we deal with folks, and we have a lot of referral sources from a lot of different places. And two of those key places are mortgage brokers and secondarily real estate agents. So it's always good for us to understand what's going on in the real estate space and where we see it going in the future. And one person that stays on top of that is my good friend here, Mr. John Matthews. How are you doing, John?
I'm well, thanks. Thanks, Chris.
Perfect. And John and I have worked together and known each other for quite a long time, probably 14 years now.
Go.
I'm coming to you from Florida, but you are coming to us from, the southern part of California in Orange County.
That's right.
And your primary business, a lot of your business for White Orchid Interiors is out of Denver, Colorado.
That's right.
So we've covered a lot of geography there. That's fantastic.
Yeah. both coasts and everywhere in between.
Exactly. So tell us a little bit about, let's start off and tell us a little about what is home staging to you, and tell us a little bit about White Orchid Interiors.
Sure. Thanks, Chris. So 14 years ago, my wife, Lauren, came home one day and she said, "Hey, I want to start a home staging business." And I thought, hey, that's awesome. What is that? What are we talking about? And in the very beginning, she was expecting that she'd be out consulting with homeowners and sellers and maybe some realtors on the things that they need to do to prepare their home for sale. And it was primarily the idea that it would be a design consultation. And very quickly, we found there were lots of opportunities in the Denver market to come in and help with vacant projects, vacant properties, people that had moved out, and they basically needed their home to look like a model. So the business evolved very rapidly from what we first expected, what we first thought. Rather than consulting, or in addition to consulting, it was really creating those model home outcomes and atmospheres, starting with the builder community. So back in 2006, it was primarily about big spec home builders, lots of investment properties where people were coming in and taking a piece of land and putting up a big house, and they wanted it to look like a model. That was a big part of the marketing component that obviously led into what the home looks like for photography and video, and makes it easier when the realtors come through and they show that property, and creating that emotional attachment to the home. So home staging is very important. And now we're at a point where really every listing, every realtor knows that home staging is important, just like real estate photography is important. Those two things are happening on every property. So the business has definitely evolved through the years. Like I said, we started out consulting. We moved into providing furniture and furniture rental services for these vacant homes and builder homes. And now we have a great team, over a dozen people in the Denver market, and we're staging 10 homes a week, engaging with dozens of realtors, investors, and home sellers throughout the Colorado market. So it has definitely evolved in the last 14, 15 years.
Well, I'm proud to say I was there in the very, very beginning. I remember these early conversations, and
Yep.
It's been interesting to see how it's kind of evolved over the years into such a large operation, and how efficient you guys actually run the business, or efficiently, you run the business across the board, and how many people you deal with across any number of brands. And I think that's great. So my first question for you is, who's your primary customer? Like, who calls you the most?
Sure.
I need my home stage.
And it's definitely changed through the years. And so to your point on efficiency, we very early on, we put in a CRM. So we started tracking and understanding who we were engaging and what we thought was true. proved early on we had only a handful of clients, and it was mostly big spec builders, investors, people that were the actual owner of the property. It started to evolve and became more realtor centric. And so today it's probably 50% realtor, and the other 50% is split between either investors or builders, and then the actual home sellers themselves that are coming to us and saying, hey, I'm looking for staging. I'm going to talk to a stager because I know I need this before I even call my realtor. And so about 50% realtor, and then the other half is comprised of investors and sellers directly.
And so that's interesting to me, because that's one of the things that kind of blew me away when we were talking, was the fact that, individuals are saying, I need my home staged because I've seen the value of doing that before I've even talked to a realtor.
Sure.
That was shocking.
It's changed drastically. When we first started 14 years ago, most of the conversations that we were having with sellers were educating them on why you would even want to stage your home. A lot of times people were like, home staging, what? A realtor would introduce the topic and they'd make a referral to us, and they'd call and say, yeah, my realtor says I'm supposed to talk to somebody about home staging, and what does that mean, and what is that about? And today the landscape it's changed completely. Everybody, whether it's HGTV or Instagram, everybody knows that you've got to make your home look good before you put it on the market. You've got to do some prep work, and whether you're living there or you've moved and you've got a vacant space, you have to make it look its best long before you do photography and video and get that listed. So I think sellers have been educated, and now the conversation's more about style and being specific to style, or the buyer demographic, people who are looking in that community, and making sure that the outcome is right. So it's definitely evolved over the years.
Does that change? The first thing I think to myself, does that change? Okay, I could see this in a market that's pretty tough, where it's all of a sudden it's a buyer's market. There's a lot of inventory out there. Does that really increase the demand for home staging, or do you see it pretty much level off across all different demand levels?
It's been very interesting. When we first started, it was all about luxury. And the people that really got it and understood, they said, hey, I've got a lot of skin in the game. This is an important project. I'm only taking on 1 or 2 projects at a time. And so I've got to get this right. I've got to make it look its best. It's important that I do that so that I can get it sold. People with an entry-level home or a more affordable home would tend to say, you know what, this doesn't matter. It's going to sell no matter what I do. And that mindset has definitely changed. I think everybody that we encounter at every price point, from very entry level all the way up to luxury properties, everybody is saying we've got to get the home prepped with staging. And so that dynamic has definitely changed through the years. But everybody knows that staging is important at all the different price points. And it makes a big difference in good markets and bad at any price point. So we lived through the great financial crisis. And during that season, we grew our business year over year. And much of that can be attributed to the fact that people were saying, I have to sell. I've got to make this work. I need to pull out all the stops so that I can get out of this property, or I can move on and take the next step in life or with what I want to do. Over the last couple of years, we've obviously had a booming market in many parts of the country. Denver's been, very strong. I think I saw recently that they were in the top 10 for most appreciation in real and nominal terms over the last 5 years, over the last 2 years. So these metrics over the last several, Denver has proven to be one of those hot cities where we can hardly keep up. And so people, even in the good markets, are saying, I've got to stage because I'm gonna create a bidding war. So rather than me being desperate to get out of the home, and I'm trying to pull out all the stops to make sure I can, sell. They're saying, what do I need to do to entice more buyers, get more people excited online, get more people to walk through? And we had a friend in a relationship this last week where we helped them with staging and photography, and they had one number in mind, and I think their final price in the bidding war just this last week was over 10% above what they were asking.
Wow.
So unbelievable results. And I think a lot of times these realtors and sellers are all attributing that to the marketing that goes into staging and photography, saying, it's well worth that investment. So good markets, bad markets, there's definitely a need and demand.
And there's definitely a premium you could get. I've seen pictures a lot. You look at homes
Mhm.
online, and 90% of the home buyers now start online, right? If not
Right.
higher at this point.
Totally.
Everybody goes online, takes a look, see what pops up, and then all of a sudden you start looking at the pictures. And I can tell you the difference when you start looking at a property like, oh wow, this is really
Right.
rough. And in your mind, you're thinking, okay, I still like the location, but
Sure.
I like it at $20,000 less.
Right.
Or
Oh, and
$50,000
that's so true. And we live in that digital age where we're so used to social media and we're so used to scrolling through our feed, and it's the images or the photos that capture our attention that we want to comment on or we want to like. We do the same thing with real estate. Everybody starts on that app and they're scrolling through properties, and it's swipe right, swipe left, yes, no, and they're moving through that process. Well, they make their decision on what they want to see based on what they see online. And staging, great photos, you can make that appeal to someone where they go, I've got to see this in person. When can I schedule the showing? When can I schedule a preview? And then, like you said, you can also have those properties where you say, this doesn't look so hot. Maybe there's some opportunity here. Maybe I can, lowball them.
Well, it's not only the lowball them. Sometimes you look at it and go, man, that looks so rough. I don't even want to go see it.
Sure.
And so that to me is what opens the door. And again, these are all great speaking points. If you work on the insurance side, you have these speaking points when you're talking to referral sources that are in the real estate business. One of the things is understanding their business as well as yours. So
Right.
I think these are key points when you're starting to look at properties, especially when you're looking online. And you mentioned something else too. Obviously, if you're looking at a $10 million home, a $4 million home, whatever it might be, and your market that's really super high end, and there's absolutely nothing in the property. Right. I can tell you from my own experience, being licensed and a realtor, that buyers don't have a lot of vision. Right. They don't walk in and go, I could see the scale of this room.
Right.
If I had a table here and everything else, it doesn't work that way. And the secondary thought was, they've already moved out. They probably want to get it. They probably going to let me get a deal on this because
That's
they're
exactly right.
to move. And so I think there's two components to this, an emotional component and a really just a smart business move.
Mm-hmm.
Is to put it in there and saying they invested some money in this. They see value in this home. And
it's complete. It's the kind of mindset that says, this is complete. When I walk through and it's furnished and it looks like a model and it's well presented, it's complete. I can see myself here. I see the total package, the total picture. I get it. I don't have to fill in the gaps and think about, what's this going to look like and how is this going to work? I see it completely.
Do you ever have anybody walk through and come back to you later and say, where did you get that dining room table? Where
Sure.
did you get that? Okay.
Yeah, we definitely do. I mean, from time to time, we'll have people that come through and they like the design, they like the style, they like the pieces, and maybe they're more flexible or they're first-time buyers and they say, can I just buy everything that's here? Or certain pieces, where did you get that? So we'll do that occasionally. For us and our efficiency and how we've built the business, for us, it really is getting the look and the outcome and keeping the price affordable for the realtor or for the seller. So, that happens from time to time, but our goal is to keep moving that from property to property, not necessarily being a interior design sales brand.
I just imagine it can happen because I've seen some of the stuff and I thought to myself, wow, that looks much nicer than what I have here. And I just like to keep it. I know you've heard some stories in the past where people saying, hey, I want you to do this. And then all of a sudden use you for a different project saying, I don't have a dining room table. I just custom made it. And then, can you put something here because I'm going to be here during season?
Yeah, right? We definitely see that from time to time.
Have you ever had anything crazy happen? Like something like a funny, this is off the top of my head, but a funny staging story where something ever happened, you thought that's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
We've had some pretty interesting. Any small business owner can speak to some of the craziness that we've had. I mean, we obviously deal with mountain resort properties, and in the winter that can get a little dicey with trucks coming in and out. We had a property one time that we had furnished as a model, and then there was a concept where the home manager was installing a tenant for a season. Well, it turns out that they were doing some kind of testing with lab rats. And it was really bizarre. They literally had rats in this house in cages, but the entire house was basically like a science nature preserve. And it was very unusual experience for us because when we came and picked up the product, basically everything, whether they'd been close to it or not, everything smelled like rodents. So we've had some and that was a very nice upper end property in one of the cities that we work in. So yes, we've had some very interesting endeavors or experiences with customers, with properties. It's definitely been an adventure.
Do they ever damage any of the, obviously your product, for the furniture, does any of it ever get damaged?
Not typically. I mean, 90% of the time, 99% of the time, anytime we put product into a home, it's vacant. The seller has moved. They're, obviously a little bit detached from that property at that point. And the only people that are coming in are people that are there for a showing, seeing the home and doing a walkthrough. So there's very little wear and tear. And if anything, it's the damage that we do in the moving process that, puts the most wear and tear or strain on our product. And so, every now and then we have a tenant, we have someone that's using product, and we try to avoid that, but it happens from time to time. And that's when we get some of those interesting scenarios.
That's interesting. What about, I know that you have different type of product, different levels of product. So
Sure.
I'm assuming that, if you have a multi-million-dollar property, there's a certain level of expectations of staging versus a property that might be a $250,000 home.
Totally.
In our market in Denver, it's, that's a big disparity.
Right.
The average price is more like $400,000 or $500,000 now. So, you have an average price home, and then you have a home that's, $10 million. It can't be the same staging, furniture, decorations, those type of things. Correct?
Right. Yeah, and the scale changes. That's probably one of the biggest pieces. For us, we can go and we can buy product. We buy everything wholesale now. We're at the point where we're going to the trade shows and we're visiting the markets, Las Vegas or High Point, and we're buying our product in bulk. The big distinction from an entry-level property to a luxe property, they may want the same style, but the size and scale of a sofa or an area rug has to be completely different for that larger property. If you're talking about a $5 or a $10 million home, even an 8x10 rug, which is pretty standard, is going to feel really small. It's going to feel like a doormat in some of these spaces. And it just, it doesn't work that well. So you've got to make sure that you're getting the style right, but you also have to make sure that the scale is appropriate, that you've got enough pieces, and that you're filling in that property. So we definitely have distinctions across price points. We have entry-level solutions, and we've become very efficient. We've figured out what people want. We have come up with some creative ways to buy product in bulk and have basically product packages that are HGTV inspired, that look very, very relevant, but are very affordable. And we can come in and we can replicate that idea or that layout over and over again as people look to stage certain rooms, the core rooms, living room, dining room, and a bedroom. And we can get people fully staged in an otherwise vacant home for $1,000 or $1,500, somewhere in there.
Wow.
And obviously it can scale all the way up as soon as you start talking about multi-million-dollar homes or parade projects or builder spec homes, models, things like that.
Yeah, I've seen some of those things on some of our most popular TV shows out there, Bravo, and some of the other ones where you're like,
right.
Staging is $50,000. You're like, wow, that's
right.
But of course, these are $20 million homes. You can see maybe it's worth a difference for sure to get people excited and get the right product in there. So.
And that's a conversation that we have with customers too. I mean, a lot of times you got to keep in mind the holding costs. I mean, there is definitely a value and a return on investment in staging. What you pay directly influences, like we talked about earlier, how people view that home, the decisions to come see it and make an offer or make a competing higher bid. And what's important to think of is whether I'm keeping that home on the market longer or reducing the time that's on the market or getting an increased bid, getting competing offers, or simply not having to go through a price reduction and try to entice people to come see it. All of those factors, they're very, you can start to put numbers around them. We talk to customers all the time. We have some metrics in our CRM when a home comes in and pops up and it's $1 million property. We have calculations that look at, what's typical either mortgage rate or tax rate in this area. And we can very quickly say, you probably are going to have a $5,000 monthly holding cost on that $1 million home, somewhere between $5,000 and $6,000. If we can help save you a month or 2 months on the market or typical price reduction on $1 million home is probably going to be 25,000 if you need to
Sure.
price. And so we start pointing to those things and say, this ought to produce that return that you're looking for and keep your value higher. Let's avoid holding costs. Let's avoid the price reduction. So that resonates with sellers for sure.
Frankly, why take the risk, right? If you're at that price point, why take the risk? And again, I liken it to, if you go out and someone has a car to sell and you're selling, let's say, a 2-year-old Porsche, and you've never cleaned the inside and it has cookie crumbs on it, and you haven't washed it, and someone comes to look at it, they're going to offer you a lot less money than if you have got it polished up and like you take care of its garage kept. Yep. It's an impression that you're making on someone saying, I value this asset, so don't try to underbid me at the same time. So
exactly. Yeah, there's excitement for the prospective buyer, and then there's also that confidence in the seller. The seller can be more confident that they're asking what they should, and they can get their price.
Perfect. We had a question that popped up on the screen. I think you can see it there. Getting ready to put a property on the market right now, realizing that staging is such an important part of the process. Mm-hmm. What is your best recommendation while you're still living at the home? I can jump in on pieces, but you're the expert. So
yeah, no, that's a great question. And a lot of people still live in their home, and a lot of properties. I mean, we estimate that probably 70% of the homes that are on the market that are listed for sale are still occupied. People don't necessarily move and vacate. That's a smaller percentage for sure. We have interior design team members that are devoted exclusively to occupied homes and consulting with homeowners. So my recommendation would be to find someone that can walk you through room by room, get a consultation. They tend to be in any market in the country. We know lots of stagers all over. For a couple $100, anywhere from, call it $200 to $400, you can have someone spend half a day with you walking through and consulting on what needs to happen to prepare that home for sale. And it's the usual suspects. It's, decluttering, removing, some of the extra knickknacks, grouping things in a way that kind of makes sense and are intuitive to someone walking through, neutralize it a little bit. So maybe some of the family photos or memorabilia, that sort of thing. Those are good things to pack and put away. If you can, start packing and preparing. If you're intending to move anyway and you've got a goal or a target to say, hey, I'm going to list and sell in a certain amount of time and we're out of here in 2 months or 3 months, whatever it may be, get started on that packing process. And whether you put it in the garage or use a storage unit for a short period of time, what you can remove tends to help make the home feel bigger and lighter and brighter and can go a long way. So a couple little tips and tricks, and then obviously working with someone if there's rooms or product that need to be filled in. Most people have everything they need in front of them. They just need to declutter and depersonalize. That's usually the big key to success with an occupied property.
And you hit 3 points there I think would be, really relevant. And again, as an agent, this comes up a lot. As you're walking through a house and you see an entire wall of people's family photos from when they were 4 years old until they're 34, you start to go, no one wants to see that, right? They want to see a clean wall, fill the holes in, put one piece of art up there and move on to the next one. Because what you don't want to do is buyers come through and go, oh, look at, I don't like that guy's picture. And you never know what's going to trigger somebody. So I 100% agree with you. Declutter is a main thing, but also depersonalize. And I have the same thing, as soon as you start thinking about listing your house, it's no longer your house. It's someone else's home. And so the packing part was the third part. Hey, listen, put all that stuff in a box and get it out of here. And don't put it in the garage where you can't put your car in there anymore, because that just shows you can't put your car in there.
Exactly.
You try to make real adjustments to think, okay, if this is the first time I walked in a home, what are my impressions? Have a friend come over. I've had other people do that for me. Just come over and say, what do you think of this? And like, wow, I can't believe you picked avocado green for this room. So you may need to paint it. And for, like you said, a couple $100, it's worth a paint, coat of paint.
Exactly.
It's worth it.
Yeah. And a good design pro can come through and guide you through that process. And if anything, when we do that, we go through and we provide a list of, hey, these are the top 5 things or the top 10 things we'd recommend you do. There are some standard, practices, but maybe it is painting. Maybe it is changing the carpet. Maybe there are some improvements that you can make that you have the time and you have the money to accomplish that can go a long way in, giving, again, maybe bringing some additional value. But yeah, lots of things that you can do. And work with a design pro, work with your realtor, and they'll guide you through that process.
Well, and I'll put that as key takeaways on there. So one of the items I know that you've expanded your business into is photography.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, the evolution of the story, because you and I were talking about it and said, you
Yep.
know, hey, I get so many calls of people say, let me know as soon as you're done staging,
Right.
so I can have someone come over and take pictures.
Right.
What happened next?
Yeah, we've done a lot of things through the years that have been relatively innovative in our industry. I mean, it is very fragmented. There are as many stagers as there are realtors. It's one of those where everybody can be a stager. There aren't a lot of barriers to entry. You just have to be passionate about it. So, you know, building a team, building scale can be challenging. We've done that with technology and using tools at our disposal, like CRMs and electronic contracts. We've paid attention to the data and noticed that we've had, a lot of realtors coming through, and like you mentioned, Chris, the common deadline for us is you got to get it staged before photography at 4 p.m. on Thursday. And so not only that, but we've seen this pipeline, maybe stepping back a little bit, the pipeline is so clear to us, and I think to many realtors today, those that are taking the business of real estate seriously, there really is a very clear step-by-step process in going to market. And you got to get the home ready. That's first and foremost. Start there, staging, any improvements or prep that need to happen. Then you got to go in and you got to do your media package. So that can be photography, video, drone, all of those components. Then you're putting that into the marketing materials. You're building your listing profiles using all the big sites and the MLS. And then you go to work on, the local marketing and letting people know that the home is listed for sale. So as we've been in business, again, kind of going up against the deadline of photography, but also just seeing that broader pipeline, I think it made a lot of sense for us to say, we can be a resource and we can offer tools to realtors or sellers by doing more. So when we get a lead and someone comes in and says, help me stage, we say, great, we can help you stage. Not only that, we can line up a photography team, an in-house team that can come and do photos, video, drone work. We can do all of that. And we can coordinate those so that as soon as we're finished with staging, they're walking in the door to do the photography, and everybody's worked well together on both timing, but also priority. And, what do we want to feature? What do we want to emphasize? How do we want to shoot these rooms? We're staging it for our photographers in a way. And so again, moving down that pipeline, and then we definitely work with sellers. We definitely have times when we get someone that comes in, reaches out to us for staging. They love the idea of photography, and they're not working with a realtor. And so it gives us an opportunity to make introductions and referrals to realtors as well. So we've really looked at how can we be a part of the broader pipeline? How can we do more for our customers? And it was just a natural fit for us to go from staging to media as well.
Well, it does seem to make sense. And again, you said the key point there, right, is we're staging for pictures, because there's quite a few more people are going to see it online and review those pictures in detail, zoom in, take really, good angles, and then they're going to see it live before they see it live at the very least. So it's so critical to have those pictures, done correctly. And, nowadays you just can't not do them, right? It's one of those things that's optional.
Right.
So if I used to work with, a lady who said, from the outhouse to the White House, if I take your listing, you're getting, staging, and you're getting, pictures, and that's it. That's what everybody gets.
And I remember, you and I both remember the day when photography was optional. There was definitely a season when it was like, all you got to do is have it, listed and in the book, and the realtor would have their hit list. And when you call them up and say, this is what I want to see, or I want something in this market, they'd take you on a tour. And that definitely changed. And as we started to move more and more online, photography was just, it's obvious. You don't even think about listing a property without it. I mean, that's a no-brainer. And I think staging has become that as well.
That's fantastic. Well, let's shift to the question that we really were looking for here. And, as we go through, you're kind of like I said, it doesn't change by the market necessarily, but you also can gauge, how the market's going on the real estate side by who's calling you, how often you're getting those calls, how much they're willing to spend, right? Right. So what does the market look like now? Obviously we went into a pandemic component, and people were freaked out. I mean, I had people here in week one, in a couple places, and they were saying, man, I hope the market recovers. And it's been 2 weeks, right? There's been no change in the market, and
Right.
I think everybody that I knew on the real estate side was preparing for like a really rough downside.
Sure.
Like we're talking 2008, 2009 kind of rough.
Right.
And it turned out to be exactly the opposite. It's been a boom. In certain markets, I'm sure they've taken a big hit. In really dense, urban markets, it may be much more difficult than it would be in outlying suburban markets. But
Right.
the majority of us live in outlying suburban markets. So it seems like there's been just a huge increase in volume. What do you see going on in the real estate market today? And then kind of future cast a little for us.
Sure. No, it's a great question, and we pay attention because we're at the leading edge of the real estate sales funnel. If you think of it that way, we get a lot of people that come through. Many of the sellers that contact us directly, they haven't yet engaged an agent, they haven't yet engaged their realtor, and so we do kind of have some foresight into what's coming, and it's there's a lot of data that we collect in our process too about how long things are staying on the market, the list price, what it eventually sells for. So we have a lot of really good insights. What we've seen and what I think is when we first went into the pandemic, I thought, oh boy, this could be, like you said, this could be a big deal. This could be a serious. It could be another 2008, 2009 scenario, and in many ways, we kind of rolled through it with it being a boom because I think two things happened. One, we saw a lot of sellers that were on the fence. A lot of people that said, I'm going to sell in the next couple of years. This is 2020 is maybe not my year. It might be 21 as I'm preparing for retirement or a move or what, upsize, downsize, whatever it may be. I think a lot of people said, wait a second, I'm going to see what I can get. Let's see what happens. I'm concerned, and maybe rightfully so. So let me go ahead and get this property listed. And they came off the fence and put their properties up for sale. They said, let's make it happen now. I don't really know. I don't know what's going to happen in 2020, let alone 21, 22, et cetera. So we saw a lot of people that I think wouldn't have necessarily come to market this year. So that's one contingent or cohort. And then everybody else that was intending to list in 2020, they did, and they might have delayed it a little bit. They might have waited, but they still came to market. So we've seen a lot of properties flood the market from both the people that were intending to sell and then those who might have been on the fence. And there's still, on the buy side, there's still a tremendous amount of liquidity. There's a lot of opportunity still with low rates. If you can afford it, and many people still can, the home market is still booming, and there are still as many buyers or more buyers than there are sellers. So it's still a seller's market. We're seeing lots of instances where people are coming through and getting competing offers, multiple bids, and the prices are still being pushed up. So 2020 has been a solid year. I think as we go into 2021, we may be seeing some potential lag effects. Real estate tends to lag the broader economy and the market by 9 months, 18 months, depending on the pace of things. And so some of the layoffs that we're starting to hear about, some of the challenges that we're seeing, businesses that still haven't been able to fully get back up and running, there may be some implications for real estate. But as long as rates are low, as long as funding abounds, then I think there will definitely be buyers to absorb that demand. And a lot of people that have moved or wanted to move have probably accomplished that in 2020. So my guess is good as yours, but I think 21 will probably be another decent year, another relatively stable year for real estate. I don't see home values coming to a screeching halt or crashing necessarily. The things that would potentially spook the market would be higher rates or a lack of liquidity. I think that's really what's going to drive the direction, whether it's price or the pace of turnover. It's going to come down mostly to almost entirely to what we can see on the lending side.
And I would agree with you there. I think funds are so cheap now that I've seen a big increase. People have talked about the Carolinas, for example. People buying cabins. And it's hard to keep things. Secondary markets, which you would think would be the first one to take a hit in any type of a downturn, have actually had a massive increase as people say, listen, I'm going to either work from home there,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm going to have a place that I can get away from in case, my home in Brooklyn is not
Right.
a good place to be during a pandemic, or if, there's so much, unrest that I don't want to be in that city or in that close proximity, I'm going to move. And
Right.
I'm going to move quickly. And a lot of them aren't waiting for their home to sell. They're going down or they're saying, listen, the tax structure in New York is too high. So I'm going to move to Florida or Texas where I can have, the same type of economic opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't have to pay the state income taxes.
Right.
So there's a lot of pockets that you're going to see for a long period of time. There's no inventory. Like
Right.
Pricing is nuts in some cases if you can find something.
Sure.
So.
And I think some of these trends, they're emerging now, and we've seen them in 2020, but they're here to stay. And these trends are only going to increase over the next year or two. And it might take a little while for them to either level off or reverse. But this ability to work from home, those who can are going to pursue that more and more. And we've kind of proven the viability of the work from home model. So even if we can return to offices, and even if we can return to the way things were, the normal of a year ago or 2 years ago, there will certainly be people that opt in for that, but there will probably be a lot more flexibility to mix and match. And maybe it's a little bit of office, but it's still a lot of work from home. And I think it's going to be a permanent shift. It'll be a permanent change. So that will continue to drive the market. Like you said, I think there will be, whether it's second home markets or the resort cabin, the resort property. Where people say, hey, I want the flexibility. I want to get out of the big city. Those trends, they'll probably be with us for a while. And companies that maybe haven't figured out the work from home yet, they're working through that. Maybe it's more complicated, but I do think they're going to get there. There's going to be so much external pressure with the volume of people that can work from home that other businesses are going to have to figure out ways to be creative and either give that flexibility or make that happen. So that's definitely going to lead to people saying, well, I want to make sure I'm in a cool spot. I want to make sure my home is nice. I'm comfortable. Maybe I need a place with that office, or I need a quiet room where the kids can play and I can be on the computer or on the phone, on the Zoom calls. But yeah, I definitely think some of those trends are here and they're not going away anytime soon.
I read an article the other day, and I can't remember if it was Market Watch or something off of CNBC on social media that said, people are now looking at this saying, well, if I'm going to retire in this area anyway, I'm going to go down and buy it there now and work from home today. Almost like my retirement dream is happening tomorrow, 15 years early, because, I have the flexibility now because of this pandemic.
Totally.
And it's a bizarre world we live in, right? When things like that start happening, because, those people still maintain their jobs. Everything's still maintained the same way. And then other folks, on the other side of the coin are running into situations where we have a larger unemployment, just a different population. We haven't seen, I don't think we've seen it fully, get through the market yet. And with all the layoffs that are coming, I saw the thing this morning on, Disney on both, California and Florida laying off quite a few people.
Yeah, almost 30,000 people at Disney. We heard today, I think Shell is also laying off 9,000. The airlines are probably going to follow very quickly. And so we're not out of the woods yet. The market's obviously recovered, but I don't know that the economy is quite there. And there will be some absorption and people will be able to get back to work as things open up more and more. And we're seeing that. I think I saw Florida pretty much removing all their restrictions and going back to work. So, we're getting there.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a great idea, but we have definitely removed all the restrictions down here. And, I think they still encourage you in every area to still maintain, some common sense standards as you go around. And as you see, some of the football games get postponed or certain teams do things, people go, wait a minute, I can't quite be that free on a day-to-day basis.
Sure.
Vaccine. So I think common sense still should prevail.
Right.
Who knows? Well,
yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. It'll open up again someday.
I have to say it's been very, very informative. I know everyone's listening or watching this really got a lot of, takeaways from that. And again, even that home staging piece, which I appreciate Tyler and Mimi throwing that out there, living at home and then how to handle that staging component. What do I do? There's a lot of good points to this. And I think, as an insurance, agent, it's good information to know what clients are going through and how you can engage those conversations with some of your referral sources or some of those clients in general as they go through the process of buying or selling a home. So this has been fantastic. And again, I sincerely appreciate you joining us from the from the West Coast earlier in the morning today.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I appreciate the opportunity.
And if anybody has an opportunity, I would say you definitely want to go and visit whiteorchidinteriors.com.
That's right.
And of all the people I've worked with in the past, you have the most organized and forward-thinking, business in general. It just happens to be in staging, and the way you guys do it is first class. So always.
Very good. Well, thank you. Thank you for that.
All right, my pleasure. You have a great day.
All right, take care, Chris.
Yeah.